Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment, and we had a classic movie for movie night this week. Classic
We did.
horror. So your pick?
Is it horror?
It's it. I think it is.
Yes, it is horror. Yeah.
It is. It is kind of horror.
So, yes, it was my choice this week, and as I said in the last podcast, it was Alien, the first Alien, with featuring Sigourney Weaver and a carrot.
What?
That was it.
Oh.
I seen it only a few times in the past, and I don't know. I think I prefer the second one, which is why I'm gonna at some point get Kaiser and Alicia to watch that.
Well, and as stated previously, I had never seen it. Although I'd kind of been aware of bits of it from a cultural perspective because parodies of it had shown up.
Yeah. It was no shock what the alien looked like or anything.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I've played the game Alien Isolation before, which I found to be, like, I normally don't go for horror games. I don't like being jump scared. And normal, like, psychological horror really doesn't get to me. And body horror just kind of...
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah. But, that aside, this movie, I think, this is my kind of a horror movie. Like, there's a bit of, like, gore and stuff like that, and it's kind of cheesy because it was from the 70s, but the actual, like, most of the horror in the movie is, like, it's got this... I noticed throughout most of the movie there really wasn't music. Like, it was mostly just... Especially in the first, like, half hour, 45 minutes, it was just people. It felt like a normal scene, like just people sitting around eating a meal, drinking a beer. And
I feel like a lot of them were like set up to be like something could kill them right now, but it turns out they were just like doing something really boring and regular.
And that's what I found like really good because they build up this tension because it feels so normal, but you know something's coming.
Yeah.
And I think so when the alien finally did show up, like you were primed to go like, oh God, no.
Yeah, I mean the part that probably the most what the fuck you doing part for me was the when he goes down, he's like fucking poking the eggs and sticking his face near them. It's like, oh God, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Like, even with no prior knowledge of Alien whatsoever. Who the fuck puts their face near, like,
I don't...
an alien organic egg?
I do not know. Like, there are plenty of horror movies where that is my line. Just, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
So, I will say that from this point on, this is, again, an older movie. We're just going to spoil the shit out of everything. Premise, and tell me if I miss anything. Like, it's essentially far future... And we're following a group of what are essentially space truckers. Like, they're on, like, a long haul, bringing cargo back from some other system. They don't really go into too much detail about that, because that's not as important. But they go into, like, some sort of a cryogenic sleep for the most of the trip, because it's implied that it takes a few years to get from solar system to solar system. And they're all looking to get back. The one guy's always talking about like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna party when I get back, And they stop along the way because a signal is detected, and their company protocol is like, if there's anything that could be intelligent life out there, you're supposed to stop and check it out. And so they do, and one dumbass, like Blue said, sticks his face next to an egg. And gets alien sucker stuck to his face. They bring him back on board and, try to take it off him, and it doesn't go so well. And then I'm trying to think what happens after that. Oh yeah, eventually it does come off him on his own, and they just let him out of the medical ward because fuck it. And he goes to eat. And then dies a brutal and violent death as an alien baby spawns from his chest.
But, and this might answer that question, Kaiser, bear in mind the medical officer was in fact wanting the alien.
That's true. So it's this is a big twist at the end of the movie. So again, spoilers. The medical officer is actually an android that is from the company, and the company has sent the android there to essentially ensure that they bring this thing back because they want to use it for like their weapons division or something like that. And
Which doesn't make that's the kind of the weakest point in the story, in my opinion, because I would send an entirely separate team that were properly
equipped, yeah,
kitted out, yeah, as opposed to, I mean, imagine the fucking loss they lost from
yeah, all that,
just all the ore.
yeah, that they would now have to wait years for. I do think it's a very weak justification for it, and I think again it's one of those things where it's in the background because that's not the point of the movie, and that's not the good things about the movie. Though talking about dumbass decisions, one thing that I remember you complaining about after we watched it was the one. So the cast of characters, I think there's like 8 of them. There's like the captain, there's the medical officer, there's the 3 guys that work down in the lower area, the
2 mechanics, yeah.
Oh, there's only 2 of them, okay. And then there's the 2 female characters, Sigourney Weaver being the Ripley being the science officer, or one of the science officers, and the other woman, I can't remember what her role is.
I think she's the pilot.
Okay, she was. Oh, that's yeah, okay. She was the pilot. Her, like, of the 2 characters, or of the characters in the story, I think 3 of them were very memorable for me. Sigourney Weaver, the Ripley, the black mechanic,
the large
dude.
mechanic, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
And then the other woman, and not for a good reason.
No.
Like the black mechanic was a badass throughout most of the movie. Like that guy was, and also I just found him
he's
funny.
Pretty annoying.
He was annoying early on, but like when shit started getting real, like he became
he redeemed himself.
Exactly. That's I think why I warmed to him. You're right. In the early stages of the movie, he was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this shit. I just want to go home and party." And it's like, "Oh, fuck this. You know, this isn't our job." It's like, "Oh, we need to be paid a little bit more." And he was just bitching throughout most of the early part. Although he ended up being right about not stopping at the planet. And then,
well, yeah.
But at the end, you're right. He's the one who's like, kind of, he doesn't like take charge, but he's the one that's like, you know, put me out in front. I'll take care of this thing. You know, I'm gonna kill this thing.
Yeah. He makes the flamethrower.
Exactly. There's a Anyway, I'll tell that story later. But and then Ripley, obviously, because she's the main character, and she's the one who, like, despite all the crazy shit that's happening and nearly getting killed by the android, she's the one that perseveres and takes charge.
Yeah. Although, sorry, I'll let you finish.
The last bit, and this is this is all getting back to, is the other female character is such a fucking dumbass.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, she was panicky and like, oh god, what's going wrong? But the thing that was pissing you off, and it annoyed me too in the movie, is she is cornered by the alien. And she goes into shock. She panics and starts screaming. Perfectly understandable. The black guy comes in with the flamethrower and is distracting the alien and pissing it off. She has the opportunity to run. She doesn't. He's shouting at her, hey, run, run, run. She doesn't run. She just sits there. Then she's looking around like she realizes, like, she's no longer in shock, she could get out of there. And the black guy gets in front of the alien and distracts it more, and she still doesn't do shit and just waits for the alien to kill her. Sorry, rant's over.
I was going to say, if you didn't know that Ripley was the main character, I think she comes over, certainly in the early part of the film, as very cold and very
disconnected.
The word I was going to use was managerial, but I'm sure there's a lot of nice managers out there, so I apologise. But she's very by the book protocol, and it does make her come over as a bit of a douche.
It does, but
then they have to have progression in some way. Yeah, she She always prioritizes the greater good.
I think this is. I thought you were actually going to go in a different direction with that. Like, if I didn't know she was the main character to start with, I wouldn't have realized it until near the end of the movie. Because I think they do a very good job of making her kind of just part of the crew.
Not overpowered.
To bring it back to a discussion we had on an earlier podcast, I think this is the reason that a lot of people hold her up as a shining example of a strong female protagonist. Because she's just like a normal woman. Like, she's exceptional because she's a science officer and she's on this spaceship, right? But they almost make it look like this is a routine thing. It's just like a normal job, like she's a space trucker. But she
they're not wearing fancy clothes or anything, and they're doing. She goes down and helps out with the mechanics at one point briefly.
Over the course of the movie, though, like she grows and becomes like this badass. Like, she is hardened by the events that happen in the movie, and because in the early stages, I mean, she's the one who wants to do her duty, leave the alien outside, don't bring it in here, and she gets overruled, and she kind of just begrudgingly accepts the fact that she was overruled. But then, as shit starts to get like worse and worse, she takes charge, especially after the captain dies. And then in the very end, she's the one that finally, figures out a way to kill off the alien. Granted, she's the only one left, her and the cat.
I don't think the alien died. I think it can survive in outer space.
Well, I think that's the thing. They talk about that in the early stages, how it has like these specialized cells that essentially allow it to live in vacuum.
Adapt.
Yeah. Maybe it doesn't die, but it certainly is very close.
It's left drifting in space, so there's not much it can do. You'll see. Well, if we ever get to the second one, the caliber of its. So the first one's more about like it's like a horror movie. It's a hunt basically for the alien. The second one is more like, all right, the humans are ready. Well, not ready for it, but they're equipped, and equally the alien has its own like weaponry and stuff, and it's more like a war as opposed to an assassination.
Yeah.
So you see a lot more of its defensive capabilities, its strategies. Obviously, when they're trying to get the face hugger off the guy, they cut it and it had like acid blood.
Yeah.
They do quite a ingenious thing with that in the second one. Which,
Alright. Yeah. Well, I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm trying not to say anything too.
I'm just thinking back, like, watch it, like, as you're going over it in my head, and I'm thinking back to some of the scenes. One of the, I think, most poignant scenes for me was when Ripley, like, discovers the secret orders and why they're there to grab the alien, and it's like, the crew's death is... This crew is essentially superficial.
Yeah.
And then that's when the android shows up, and she and there's that scene where he's essentially trying to kill her, and like she's trying to get away, and it like, because you're used to the alien, it's always unseen, it's kind of off screen, and suddenly you have this very immediate visible threat, and I just found that scene very poignant, and very brutal, like.
Yeah,
but
especially
brutal,
because of the betrayal.
Yeah, brutal not in a like violent and gory way, but brutal in a psychological sense.
Right. Yeah, and oh man, the CGI. Well, not CGI. The prop head, and then it switches to the real head, and it looks so different. Granted, they were had a budget, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got a spaceship with all these old CRT monitors and stuff, and
yeah.
But I mean, it was the 1970s. You gotta forgive a few things because of the technology of the age.
Absolutely. And I remember watching quite a while back a YouTube video. You get these YouTube videos on like, who would win in a fight between Doom Guy and
Yeah,
Space Marine, right?
yeah, yeah.
So there was one which was a Imperial battle cruiser from
Hmm.
Star Wars
Yeah.
versus a single infected stormtrooper with the alien face hugger.
The alien inside it. Interesting.
Which I think the resolution was if they didn't kill it before it grew into a full alien, then it would absolutely just destroy absolutely everyone on the ship. Even though these things are flipping huge ships, and they're but if they're able to shoot it like even a couple of times, because the blasters are like it's heat related,
Yeah.
so it would cauterize the wounds. So the acid wouldn't drip through the ship and it wouldn't destroy the ship. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm just thinking about the scenario in my own head now. I'm going through like how I would see it going down.
Hmm. I think the scenario included having Darth Vader on the ship.
Well, that's easy. He just crushes the damn thing.
Well, he can't crush. Like, okay, in Alien Isolation there was only one alien, but they can breed into a lot of aliens.
Yeah.
Uh, and God knows, what a stormtrooper's aim is like.
That was so. To go on a slight tangent about that, the whole meme about the stormtroopers missing everything. That was something I
Hmm.
kind of liked about the side movie Rogue One. In
Yeah,
that movie, they actually managed to do a good job of making the stormtroopers seem like a legitimate threat. Like they're
yeah.
actually intimidating soldiers rather than just goofball things for the heroes to slaughter by the thousands.
Hmm. It does annoy me seeing how wait, this is the media segment, isn't it?
It is the
Cool.
media segment. I mean,
Um, the fuck, I've been watching Sons of Anarchy, and in one of the scenes in particular, don't get me wrong, it happens in a lot of the scenes, but one particularly stands out for me. Um, there was like I can't remember how many guys, multiple guys with automatic weapons, standing in the middle of the road, whilst people on motorbikes ride towards them, stop, get off their motorbikes, and return fire with pistols, and none of the people on motorbikes get hit
which is
from
retarded
like
because you can
20 meters away.
that's pistol
Yeah.
range, but the rifles would have been able to hit them like miles back on the road, especially if they're stationary.
Yeah, multiple people. Like, they have all the time in the world. They had to ride up, stop the bikes. Like, they even put the bikes on their fucking stand. They didn't just, like,
Like,
drop the bike or anything.
don't get me wrong, I'm not a great shot, but from 20 meters with a rifle, I could, yeah,
Ah,
I'd be able to
it,
hit somebody.
it freaking winds me up. Because, yeah, it's just, absolutely you can do it where, like, oh, well, no one gets shot. But then give them some reason not to get shot. Like, oh, there's
Right.
a lot of cover, or
Yeah, they're
oh, in the
under
middle of a road.
they're undercover, or like something's wrong with one of their guns, like somebody sabotaged or something. You gotta, yeah, that's just lazy writing.
Yeah.
And
Whereas,
so it's,
sorry.
that's something that annoyed me near the end. So I finished. There are two things that I finished this week. So I finished the second season of The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
which still really liked it, but it was very formulaic. Most of the episodes struck me as like a side quest in a video game.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh no, this thing happened. Now you have to go here and get this item, and now go here and talk to this person. Now go here and get this item, and now you can turn the quest in. Like that's what it felt like.
Right.
Granted, I still like the overarching story, and it had at the very end. This is a massive spoiler, but at the very end of the series, it had a cameo from a classic Star Wars character.
Right.
Specifically, they brought back Luke Skywalker. Um,
Right.
like he pulls a Deus Ex Machina in the end of the movie and saves the main protagonists, and they used like the whole deep fake technology to de-age his face.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask whether this is like old Luke or young
No, no,
Luke.
it's young Luke.
And you?
Which this has caused a bit of a controversy. I found out after I watched it, because Mark Hamill, the guy who plays Luke Skywalker, and he also does the voice of the Joker from Batman. Strangely enough, which is crazy because I can't imagine that. But he came out on Twitter, of course, that wretched hive of scum and villainy, to openly.
Go and see our page now.
There's a bingo card up there now, a professionally done one, based again on the fan art. He went on Twitter and he thanked like the director for giving him the opportunity to bring back old Luke, or not to bring back, but to. He said it's something like it was an honor to play Luke again back, and bring him back to the era where he was still a symbol of hope or something like that. And
right,
it's kind of a little bit of a jab at the directors in the last two, or specifically the second sequel movie, The Last Jedi, which basically turned Luke into a grumpy old man who'd failed at everything.
Yeah. And
I think that, it probably... Mark Hamill's been... he's probably contractually obliged not to say anything too negative, but in interviews and stuff, it's slipped out that he's just not happy with how they treated his classic character. I mean,
that's fair enough.
But I won't go into too much. But the series continued to be very good. But the reason I brought it up is because, again, they have like dozens and dozens of stormtroopers dying by the dozens, and none of the main characters ever get shot.
No, I mean, you can kind of get away with it with characters that have the Force, because obviously they literally can dodge.
Yeah, but these are just normal people.
Oh, okay, then yeah. No. Definitely.
You're right. It makes sense when Luke shows up and is starting to do stuff, because he's got a lightsaber, he can bounce the stuff back, he can crush people with the Force and stuff. But the main characters are just, they're mercenaries, and it makes sense that maybe they'd be able to dodge, or they have like special armor that protects them or something. But half the time the stormtroopers don't even hit anywhere in their postcode, and there's like hundreds of them shooting at them. It's like,
yeah.
Do you guys get any training at all?
Oh man, I was watching a Twitch streamer the other day playing The Sims Star Wars DLC.
Oh god, yeah.
It made me angry. Because it was like, okay, so you can decide whether you want to be part of the Rebels or the First Alliance. Yeah. Is that what it's called? The First Alliance?
First Order.
First Order. Fuck me, it's a dumb name. And they give you things so out of order, right? So he was walking around in First Order officer clothing, right? But he was excited to try to be promoted enough to be a stormtrooper.
What?
And like, I was really confused. I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. And before he even got to be a stormtrooper, right? Before that, he got a red lightsaber.
I can't even describe to you how many brain cells I just lost from listening to that.
Right? And he was excited to get a blaster. Like, I was losing my shit. I mean, obviously I wasn't on the stream, so it doesn't matter, but in the comments, everyone was like, hey, let's get some really cool stormtrooper armor and stuff, and I'm just in the comments like, girl, stupid. No, I didn't say that.
Oh my god.
I felt like a massive nerd because I was defending like the original Star Wars canon against these people. They were just there for a good time. I mean, it's Sims; it doesn't matter.
But yeah,
but it did to me.
Well, I think so. I want to talk about The Expanse because I also watched that this week, and that's the one that I really have. I'm literally excited. I haven't been excited to watch a TV show in a long time. But The Expanse is so good that I'm like literally I've still got 3 seasons ahead of me, and I'm just really hyped up to watch them and see how they play out. But I do have to say this real quick. I've if you saw like the sort of YouTube channels and stuff that I'm subscribed to, it's all like very dry, nerdy shit like History Channel's psychology, sociology, a couple.
You follow sociology?
Yeah, sociology.
Yeah, I'm surprised, that's all. I would have thought it'd be one of those things that you call not a subject.
Well, no, sociology is an actual science, unlike social science, ironically.
Oh, I thought that was basically...
There's
Am I getting an astronomy, astrology thing?
Yeah, it's an astrology, astronomy sort of thing.
Okay.
No, but sociology is basically just the study of, like, people and how they interact, and, like, it's sort of a...
Right.
As I understand it, I'm not a professional.
What's social studies, then?
Well, in the U.S., social studies usually means history. Social studies is the class we have in our schools where you study history.
I would say sociology is more bollocks than history.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, okay, that's true. But to be fair, since history is subjective, it's always written by whoever won and got to write the books. So history is always mainstream history.
Mostly, yeah.
When I'm talking about the history that's taught to grade schoolers, it's very, very biased. Which, it's sort of like one of the spoils of victory, that you get to write the history books. But if you read like hard history, the type of like analytical ones that go back to source material and try to look at things through a sort of an unbiased lens, that's where you start to get into some, what really happened. I'm going to waffle on this. The whole reason I brought this up was one of the YouTube channels I follow is this a woman. She's a PhD, and I can't remember what it is, but it's a field of sociology.
Okay.
And she'll go through studies on like these hour-long videos and do analysis to try and figure out what exactly, like, to draw some conclusions about some sort of an issue. And one of the things she did was a video on why people get so emotional when they see something they're a fan of kind of tarnished or changed. So Star Wars being a perfect example, because they've sort of, the newer movies, specifically the second one and to a lesser extent the third one, pissed all over the legacy of the original movies. They turned Han Solo into a deadbeat dad, they turned Leia into Mary Poppins, and they turned Luke into a grumpy old man who failed at everything.
Yeah.
And I think that people like grow emotionally attached to characters because you see something on a screen, and from a psychological perspective, our brains aren't equipped to say that person isn't real. I don't actually know that person. And you sort of,
oh my god,
you sort of grow to think of that person as like a friend or a family member, subconsciously, because it's
going through the same struggles that they are, and you pity them or
exactly. Yeah. They did a study years back where they looked at the brain activity of monkeys, and they found that the same parts of the brain light up when the monkey is doing an activity as when he's watching someone do that activity. So our brains are actually hardwired to go through the same sort of chemical processes when we watch another person that we empathize with doing something as when we do it. It's a fascinating field. I'm going way off into the weeds here, but that long story was just to make that point that I've heard people do a similar analysis to try and find out why people have that sort of strong emotional reaction when they see something like a beloved character, in their eyes, tarnished.
Yeah, there was a scene that I was watching, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and literally, when the scene started, I kind of went meta in my own brain, right? I paused it and I was like, right, there's a very visceral scene, which, as you know, I don't like body horror.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I know that none of it's real. I know that no one's actually getting hurt. And then I tried to actively think of the characters in the show as not human.
Well,
and I failed abysmally.
It's very, very difficult to turn something like that off. It's one of the reasons, to touch briefly on politics, why like Soviet era well, Stalin era communism was so gruesome and horrifying, and why things happened in World War II Germany. It's because they were able to dehumanize
Disconnect.
like an
Yeah.
other, like it was we are people and they are lesser than people,
Yeah.
and they'd use words. That's where like the words like Stalin didn't have people killed and rounded up; he liquidated them.
Right.
And in his own like correspondence, that's how he refers to it. He's like, I need 50,000. What was it? 50,000 capitalists liquidated, or something like that. And never in that statement is he saying, I'm going to kill another human being. So it shows how you can. It's a very, it's a way to what you were trying to do there. Remove yourself from empathizing with another human being.
Hmm.
Okay, that's enough, science and psychology. I really want to talk about The Expanse, and we're already over 30 minutes.
Go for it.
So I talked a little bit about it because as of last podcast, I had only watched the trailer, but now I've watched the entire first season and a half. Like, I could not stop watching this. I think I had, so we did the podcast on Saturday.
How long was the first season?
10 or 12 episodes. Each
Okay,
episode
they're
being
about 40 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, they're about 45 minutes long.
Okay.
So as of last podcast, I talked about it on the podcast, the trailer. That was Saturday. Sunday, no one heard from me because I literally spent the entire day watching The Expanse. I watched it from the moment I got up until in the evening. I think I got on and played like a game with Scott and some people, but the rest of the day I just spent watching The Expanse.
Jeez.
It was so good. So the premise, to as a refresher from last podcast, is 23rd century solar system. Humanity has basically colonized the whole solar system, but they haven't moved out beyond yet. But they're starting to think about it. Mars and Earth are the two like new superpowers. Earth is united under the UN. A horror story for me, and Mars has its own government. They're like the MCRN. It's the Mars Colonial Republic, MCR. That's what it is.
Right. Isn't that something in Fallout New Vegas?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I think that it might be the like the Minutemen or something. No, NCR.
Anyway.
No, NCR. You're thinking of NCR.
NCR.
It's the new California Republic in Fallout.
That's the one.
So Mars is basically a military superpower. Earth is kind of an aging giant that's in decline, and then there's tons and tons of like tiny little outposts out throughout the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt and around Saturn and Jupiter.
Yeah.
And the show, from the trailer, it seemed like they were going to do this. From the episodes I've watched, they did an amazing job portraying like realistic sci-fi. Meaning, like, I could picture in the 23rd century human civilization being like this. Like acceleration will hurt people if the micro asteroids combat in space. The big concern is bullets penetrating the ship and then penetrating the person and then going through them, and now you've got a puncture in your suit. If they make a hard banking maneuver to get out of the line of fire of another ship, then that could seriously harm people if they aren't strapped in properly. And then, of course, like water being like more precious than gold on like asteroids and stuff, because and they do a really good job portraying the politics too, where Earth is they've got this aloof position because they've got all this land and air and water and resources, whereas on the asteroids they're having to scrounge for all of that. And then on Mars they live in domed cities. They wanted to terraform the planet because of a near military conflict with Earth that kind of set them into a Cold War. They had to put that off and invest in their navy, and now Mars is like a military superpower, but they still haven't finished terraforming their planet.
Yeah.
And there's this sorry.
No, I was waiting for you to finish.
There's this lingering animosity between Mars and Earth, and under their noses, sort of a ground swelling movement from the asteroid belt for their own independence starts to rise. And it's just the politics in it are really cool. The characters are extremely well written. The show does a good job of never making you feel like there's a good guy or a bad guy. Like every one of the characters is well written and nuanced, and they have their good sides and their bad sides. They make mistakes, they do things right. Some of them are selfish, some of them are altruistic, and they every character feels very human. That's it. That's a rant. Absolutely love the show.
It does sound very interesting, and there are two things which it made me think of. One of which I think partially, possibly, one of the reasons you like it so much is it sounds a lot like the early days of Halo.
What, like the hard sci-fi and stuff
Like
like?
when they're just starting to leave Earth, and there's basically a business war between Earth and Mars.
Yeah, except in the Halo franchise, it's 2 centuries later, and humanity's colonized quite a few planets. But you're right.
Right, is that where it starts? Okay.
Before the Covenant show up in Halo, you're right. The political situation is similar. You've got a
sounds
core.
Like an origin story.
You've got core worlds that are very Earth-like, and then you've got the outer worlds that are very Mars-like, and the very, very outer worlds that are very much like the belt in this show. So actually, that's not a bad metaphor, or not a bad comparison.
And the other thing that it made me think about, and I'm sorry to sound like an old broken record, but this does also very much remind me of that book series that I keep telling you to read.
Oh, the Mars one. The what is it called? Red Rising.
Red Rising, yeah.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got the audiobook actually. It's downloaded on my phone.
Oh damn.
Man,
maybe I'm making progress with you.
Well, I downloaded it when you told me to. I just have other books in my queue that come before it.
Yeah, lots of Space Marine books. The particularly where you're saying like the space battles when the bullets have to go through the hull, then the person.
Yeah.
There's particularly in the second book onwards.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ship-to-ship combat, and one of the modes it was remind me of one of the particular ways in which the ships fight, which is they basically fire people at the side of a ship.
Yeah.
In these like high-powered suits, and they just smash through the hull, and then they start walking around inside the ship and blowing people up on the inside.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it is anything similar like that, I would love to see it, because obviously I've only been able to listen to it so far. So if it keeps going really well and you keep recommending it, and maybe like into season 2 or 3, it's still good, and I'll absolutely give it a watch myself.
There's a so season 2 so far has just picked up where season 1 left off and just been awesome. So at least so far, they've managed to maintain the momentum.
Yeah, and they haven't fallen into the drama trap of relationships and shit.
There are, but they're not the primary focus. Like they do an amazing job of striking a balance. There's a balance between showing you cool sci-fi shit, going into the politics of this fictional like world where Earth and Mars are essentially in a Cold War, and then going into character drama and developing the characters, showing how they interact, but it's not like soap opera tier drama, to use a quote that you had from last week. It's not like, I can't believe Brad's sleeping with Cindy.
Yeah,
like it's not like that. There are like there's a relationship that develops, and I won't go into too much detail, but two main characters, essentially this male and female character that have been butting heads since the beginning of the series, they eventually end up kind of finding a mutual respect for each other, and then that develops into a romance. But they have conflicted loyalties, because he lives in the asteroid belt, but he's from Earth. she's grown up in the belt, and so she finds herself in like this conflicted loyalty where she makes a decision behind his back that could screw over all of humanity because she thinks it might give her people, the natives of the asteroid belt, a leg up in any sort of political negotiations moving forward.
Right.
And that happens in season 2. So it's a bit of a spoiler, but I mean, you kind of see it coming when it happens in the show.
I see.
I do want to give a shout out to this one character in it because we were talking about dehumanization and like empathy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like this cold-hearted dude, but there's clearly he's not like a sociopath. At first, he seems like he's one, but over the course of the show, they like for example, there's a scene where this guy is threatening one of the crew members, and they're like, "No, we gotta wait," and he's like, "No, we need to get out of here right now." And eventually pulls a gun. He's like, "If you don't get out of here right now, I'm gonna shoot you in the head." And without hesitation, this other guy shoots him in the back of the head.
Right, out of Left Wing.
Yeah, and then like the blood splatters on the person that the guy was threatening, and it pans over to this guy, and he's just perfectly calm and placid, and he's like, "All right, you say we wait, we wait. I'm gonna take this outside." And when he says this, he's talking about the body of the guy he just shot.
Right.
And so, but then, like, as the series goes on, you start to realize that there is a lot of nuance to this character. He's deeply traumatized, meaning he's become this cold and callous for a reason. So they don't... It's one of the things I love about the show, and this is the last thing I'll say because I am looking at the time. They don't fall into the trap of using stereotypical characters. There's no like this is the jock, this is the sociopath, this is the scientist. They're all very nuanced, and I'm just basically just splooging over the character and the writing. The writing in this show is just, I can't tell if it's just amazing or if I'm just so starved for good like TV to watch. Because most of the TV and movies that have come out in recent years have just been garbage. Or maybe it's just there's always garbage in every era, and looking back, I only remember the good stuff. Anyway, I won't go on about that too long. Any final thoughts before I close this out?
No, I think we're better. I hope everyone is ready for part 3.
Yes, so we're looking. It's a quiz segment. It's our half-year quiz segment. Blue is quizzing me again, so you'll get to see my lovely face on camera.
Ooh. Have you got a hat?
I don't have it. I don't like wearing... I could wear a beanie. I have a beanie.
Alright, if you have to wear it over your headset.
Alright, that's fine. I'll do that, but only for the beginning, and my head will get hot. Alright, fuck it. That's the end of the segment. Thank you all for listening. This has been segment 2, our media segment of the TMCJ podcast. Listen for a little bit longer, and you will get to hear a fun little quiz that I know nothing about. There is no theme this time, so who knows? But yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully you'll tune in again soon.